I'm Francesca. I had my baby boy Dougie at home on the 7th of June 2024, about 20 past 3 in the afternoon. So then in the picture, I'm lay on the bed, I've got Dougie in my arm. Part of the agreement and the out of guidance plan was for um the placenta to be birthed with the injection, so a managed active third stage, because there was a higher risk of postpartum bleeding. So in an ideal world, I would have not had that, and I would have done it. I would have done it physically, and I wouldn't have needed that. But that was something that I was willing to agree to. So yeah, that's that point. So we waited for the cord to go as white as we could before we kind of needed to look at getting the placenta out. So that's just me with the gas and air. Dougie was on me. Abigail had set up for Jack to cut the cord. Jack was cutting it, as he did with Ada. Healthy baby boy. Just dream. There was nothing else in that moment that I could have asked for. I had no tears. I had a small first degree tear, just like a graze, compared to an episiotomy of the first one. So that experience was a million times different to what I'd experienced. So yeah, in that moment, I was just so proud of myself, so exhausted. I had my baby girl Ada in October 2019, and her birth was okay. But I knew that for my next one, I definitely wanted to look into and try being at home, just having read up on the benefits of it and how it, for a low risk pregnancy and higher risk pregnancies, it is one of the best places to be. So I did a lot of reading and a lot of preparing. And I said to my husband, who's called Jack, I think it was even before we were pregnant again, I said, how would you feel about me giving birth at home to the next baby that we have? And at first he was a bit unsure, just because he'd never really come across it before or heard of it before. And I explained it, and I had a lot of data and statistics, and he's a data and statistics minded person, so that worked. And we also went to a home birth information evening that Stepping Hill Hospital run, with a midwife called Laura, who is great. So we went to that, and from that point, there was no disagreement in what we were going to try and do. We live really close to Stepping Hill Hospital anyway, so if anything was needed and we needed to transfer, we knew we could just do that anyway. So it got to, I think, 37 weeks pregnant. We'd made the plan. We had a birth pool all set up. We had my mum on standby. It was all great. And then I went for one of my final midwife appointments, and I had been offered a couple of growth scans, and I went, and they basically ended up diagnosing me with polyhydramnios, which is excess fluid. And one of the complications of that is a cord prolapse, where the cord would come out before the baby, and then that's an emergency situation. So I was in a situation where I'd gone from low risk pregnancy to high risk pregnancy, and if I was going to birth at home, it would have been out of guidance. So with a very supportive doctor, we came up with a plan that was, if my waters were to go, because they exploded movie style with Ada, if that was to happen again, I would need to get straight in the car, upside down on the back seat, hips in the air, head on the seat, to try and tilt baby and cord away from my cervix. And that's what ended up happening. So I went to bed on the Thursday evening at 39 weeks pregnant, and I wiped, and I'd lost quite a lot of plug. So I said to Jack, which it didn't happen with Ada either. So I said to Jack, something is happening. And at this point, the pool wasn't currently inflated. So we thought probably should do that. So we set up the space downstairs. So I knew it was all ready to go. Went to sleep for about 10:30, 11. And 1 a.m. woke up to it again, explosion of waters. So I jumped out the bed onto the hardwood of the floor. And the waters were just going and going and going. So we rang my mum. got into the back of the car and zoomed down to Stepping Hill, which is less than a mile away down the road. When we got there, at the door of the maternity triage was a midwife called Trudy, who, when I got the polyhydramnios diagnosis, she was also there at that time. So I was just thrilled that it was a face that I knew, who understood already why I was there, what the plan was. So I didn't have to explain everything from the start. She didn't have to go and read it all. So she did a check and there was no cord prolapse, which was amazing. So she checked baby's heart rate, checked there was no cord prolapse, and basically said, "You're good to go." By this point, my waters had been pouring out. I'd been on the bed, I was sat in a puddle, and I stood back up, and my water trickled and ran under the doorway out into the corridor. There was so much. um, so yeah, managed to get back dressed into wet pajama bottoms, back in the car to come home and hopefully have a baby. So we got home, my mum was still here, Ada was still asleep, which was great. I was having crampy feelings, but nothing that I would say was unmanageable. So I was just rocking and swaying in the kitchen for a little bit and decided to get in bed after a cup of tea. I think we managed to get maybe an hour, 2 hours of sleep, but the contractions came pretty quick and quite often, which is exactly the same way as it happened with Ada. From the start, they were definitely there, consistent, and upping in intensity from the start. I had to get out of the bed. I came downstairs. We rang the unit. Obviously the midwife team already knew that my waters had gone, so the home birth team were on, which was good. There was no the team was there. There wasn't any closures for the home birth team at that time, which I was really grateful for. So we rang them and we had one midwife turn up. She sat with us for a little bit, and then the second midwife turned up, and she was called Abigail, and she is still probably one of my favorite people in the whole world. Her presence and her energy and just her vibe was incredible. Um, as soon as she came in, I felt my labor I settled and I went really into the zone. So I was in and out of the pool. The pool actually slowed my contractions down a lot, but I used it to rest. I was in and out twice, I think, and the water was amazing relief, but it really spaced out my contractions, but just gave me time to breathe and gather my thoughts again. And then when I would get out, they would come again thick and fast. So, yeah, I got in bed for a little while, with gas and air, and I love Hamilton, the musical. So we had Hamilton on Disney Plus. So I was just singing my way through that, singing through contractions. There's some funny videos. Yeah, and then it got to the point so my waters had broken at 1 o'clock in the morning. I would say contraction, I was in labor from 5 a.m., 6 a.m. ish. So by 1, 2 o'clock ish, Abigail was kind of saying, "We're okay. We can hear baby's heart." We didn't know it was a boy at that time. "They're okay. We just kind of need to do a few obs and make a bit of a plan. If this baby needs some help, we don't know." So I got out of the pool. I crab walked up the stairs. Abigail had me on the toilet, and I had a couple of really big contractions on the toilet. And I felt this with Ada as well. So a lot of people say that they can feel when the baby's descending. I don't seem to get that feeling. I don't know the difference between a contraction and a contraction that's bringing them lower. I just can't tell the difference for me. So we were on the toilet and she said, "Right, we need to get you through onto the bed. We'll take a couple of obs. We'll have a bit of a chill and we'll work out what we're doing next." I walked to the doorway of my bedroom to get on the bed, and Hannah, who was the other midwife that was with us, said, "Oh no, wait, I think I can. I think I can see see the head." Um, and yeah, within the next couple of pushes, Dougie was born. I was stood up right next to my bed, holding over onto Jack's shoulders, and Hannah videoed his birth, which was incredible. I didn't know that was happening at the time because I was facing the other way. So that was really nice to find on my camera roll. I was scrolling through afterwards. So pushed him out. Abigail caught him. It's gorgeous on video. Abigail caught him, passed him through my legs, and just passed him to me. And I sat on the bed with Jack, baby wrapped in a towel. Perfect. It was the dream. So then in the picture, I'm lay on the bed. I've got Dougie in my arm. Part of the agreement and the out of guidance plan was for the placenta to be birthed with the injection, so a managed active third stage, because there was a higher risk of postpartum bleeding. So in an ideal world, I would have not had that, and I would have done it. I would have done it physically, and I wouldn't have needed that. But that was something that I was willing to agree to. So yeah, that's that point. So we waited for the cord to go as white as we could before we kind of needed to look at getting the placenta out. So that's just me with the gas and air. Dougie was on me. Abigail had set up for Jack to cut the cord. Jack was cutting it, as he did with Ada. Healthy baby boy. Just dream. There was nothing else in that moment that I could have asked for. I had no tears. I had a small first degree tear, just like a graze, compared to an episiotomy of the first one. So that experience was a million times different to what I'd experienced. So yeah, in that moment, I was just so proud of myself, so exhausted. But yeah, I knew that I could do it, and I did it, and it's just the best thing I've ever done.